Right. We're going to try to talk about what happens before you actually saw, because I experimented and I can't talk over the noise of the saw. So what I thought I'd do is give you a walkthrough of what happens, and then I'll film me sawing one container so that you've also got that on your teaching videos and you can look back and forth between the two. So when you begin to saw, I always used to teach students, make a map of your cuts. Take a nice black permanent marker, and what you're going to do is mark onto your samples actually what each of these samples are and the direction of the top profile with an arrow. Just footnote, these lovely plastic containers come from Lakeland Plastics, and they're somewhat smaller than an ice cream container, and they come in stacks of, I think, 5 with lids, and they are beautiful to work with actually. Oftentimes I can recycle these containers because after you mark up each of your blocks with its number and its top designation arrow, you turn it upside down and tap it out on a hard surfaced floor. It should release unless the resin at the bottom of the container is sticky. And that does happen sometimes, but if that's the case and you can't pop it out for reuse, it is small enough to go under the blade of the saw and just saw through the plastic as well. It happens, but ultimately you're aiming to recycle, reuse. Perfect. I can probably get about 4 impregnations out of each container. So that's pretty good going. Okay, let me show you what I mean, I hope. I've pre-cut these, but can you just make out the numbers? I don't know. This was number 1, the first cut. The top is here, the base is here, so that would be your cut number 2. Then you come along and you're going to cut out your side, and the last to cut pretty much is the top. And when you cut the top, you're going to incise with the blade a mark so that it tells you that is the top. And then what you've got is a squared block, which you then turn. Let me think. We're going to turn it on its side. Top is here, base is here, and what you do is you're going to take a base cut on the block. The plastic will be gone by now, but take a base cut to get off the bottom of the container. Then your next cut into the block, you're kind of getting into the area where your sample is. But of course, if you're the researcher cutting your own blocks, you know what you saw in the field and what you really want on glass. So go for the slice that you want to see on the glass. And if that takes 2 or 3 cuts into the block, each slice should be about 4 mil, 5 mil thick. Take as many cuts as you need to find the face of a sample slice that you want to see on your glass for thin section. And that's pretty much it for cutting. Remember, it is, for me, it's one of the more exciting parts of the process, because at this stage, you're now seeing the success of your sampling. And for the first time since you were in the field, you're seeing what you saw and what you wanted to thin section from the field in a cured resin block. So it is for me the most exciting part in a way. And then seeing the final thin section is also pretty exciting. But that is pretty much it. My recommendation for the saw, most people who first start want to push their sample through that blade at a good rate. What you've got to do is listen to how the blade is reacting to your sample. If it's starting to struggle, what you want to do is slow down the forward progress of cutting so the blade sounds like it's happy, it's cutting well, and it's not starting to stick. Keep your water running through at a good rate, not too much, not too little, but listen for the sound of a happy blade cutting. You'll know if you're pushing too hard, it's going to make a big noise. So it's letting it start in on the sample and letting it almost pull it through with just a little bit of help from you. Position of hands, usually you can start your cut with one hand here, and as it starts to get through the middle of the sample, you remove this hand and just hold the top of the block through to the end. Of course, I think what we'll do is when I start to saw, before I do, I'll give you a little video on your PPE, your personal protective equipment, the clothing and the gloves that you need to wear when you saw. And that's an absolute, I'm afraid. You have to gear up. You have to protect yourself. You can get splashback. In some instances where your impregnation didn't work, you can get a lot of caustic smelling resin. And of course you're fuming your cutting procedure, but again, you want to have protective barriers on your front so that you're prepared for, in any event, for what might happen. Some people have used barrier cream before they put on their PPE, but we'll go through that before we actually start to saw. So, again, I will probably hold up to the camera as I make my cuts so that it's pretty obvious the procedure and protocol of how to go through cutting one container of samples. And I think you'll find that fun. It's noisy, but with all your protective equipment, you should be absolutely fine. Okay.